make a little introduction. Being an artist, I can't think linearly from left to right or from right to left. And so the way we do this is by approaching an area from different directions. One of the approaches is given by what Tim just explained. We show each other an object that we brought to the stage. In my case, as a homage to the Rubin and to the idea that we're all deities, my object is also a gift. Then another approach is, since I do this 8 times, I thought it would be interesting with the goal of really finding out how all these artists, if we want to call them this way, do what they do so well or with such grace, to take them through the same sort of stations of discussion. And I've been using the 7 limbs practice as a template for the discussion. And I do that by, the 7 limbs practice is formed by 7 actions that you perform, and that they have, as an object, they have a Buddhist object. But if you get rid of the Buddhist object, you are left with these 7 actions, which are actions we do perform in our daily life, and I'm just curious to see where they take us.
Sure.
So this is the framework of the night. Shall I produce my object first?
Sure.
Well, since
I'm excited.
Since we also have to entertain a little here, I thought that I would take advantage of the situation to invite you to eat one of my paintings.
Oh, wow. That's cool. That's great.
I don't know if this is too irreverent, but will you do it?
Yeah, but it's you baked it?
I can't say I baked it. Half is already made, and the other half I did paint.
I want to keep it. Can I eat a little bit and keep the rest?
It's the first challenge of the night. It's up to you.
Okay, because you wish for me to eat, I will have a piece from the top, and then I keep the rest, and I will frame it in
that completes the work. I think that's the correct way. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. It's almost like going to church and eating the... but I don't go to church, and I don't eat, how you call it in English?
Yeah, the wafer, yeah.
Yes. But this is very good.
It is a similar taste.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for putting up with my vanity.
No, not at all. This is very generous of you. And so can I show you my object?
Absolutely.
So I'm saving that.
I have a
we have to
box.
save it, making sure it's safe and doesn't break.
Perfect.
And I am not that starving, actually, and so I'm happy that I can save it. So I brought you this object.
Oh, lovely. Wow.
So can I explain why?
Yes.
So this is a stone, obviously, and it's a jade. I believe that jade is from Canada, and it's a Buddha that was living in that stone, and the carver found the Buddha, obviously, and sculpted it. So I wanted to give it to you. Of course, it's to be generous and to be thankful and grateful for your kindness. Also, it's important for me to give it to you because I'm a Buddhist practitioner. However, I collect Buddhas, which is not really in the teachings. And, and I get slightly obsessed with them and possessive. So a couple of times a year, I give it to dear friends or people I admire.
Oh,
I give few of them.
So much.
And this one was in my meditation room. And I don't know, I was thinking about you, and I said, you know what? It's time to let it go. So
Thank you so much.
So it's yours.
Thank you. Thank Lovely. Well, the Hindus who are not Buddhist, they say find something you like and accumulate a great quantity of it.
Well, I kind of did that. I have a 12 feet tall Buddha. I didn't bring that one. We have a bag for that, yeah.
Yes. That was an unexpected bonus to have a gift. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome.
And yeah, now maybe we can engage in our travel through the seven limbs practice, hoping that the fact that you're, because the last guest before you was Gelek Rinpoche, and with him I had to somehow switch a little bit gear because to him the object of these actions is a Buddhist object. And if you are a practitioner, you may also do that. In any case, in the seven limbs practice, the first step of the practice is taking refuge. So I would ask you, in your working life, personal life, if you have to think of a refuge, what is the refuge?
Well, so in Buddhism, it's taking refuge in Buddha, Dharma, Sangha.
Yes.
In my daily life, I will take refuge in my heart, in meditation every morning. And that will dictate then what I'm going to try to do during my journey or my day. So the heart is where, the heart is the source of the refuge. And therefore, after that, obviously, I will be a better person with my family, a better person with people surrounding me, with animals, with my employees at work, with the clients, with everything. And taking refuge in a heart also helped me to deal with frustrations at times and so on. So it's where I take refuge.
Where it is. But
can I ask you where you take refuge, or I'm not supposed to?
No one has ever turned the table. But first, and just to escape the question, the first image that comes to mind to me when you say the word meditation is that as you're sitting in your morning meditation, you have some fantastic idea of a new recipe, and this disturbs your meditation. Is this something that happens?
Sometimes. Because, I mean, I'm talking to a master here, but creativity, it's something that we cannot control, right? I mean, we don't press the button here and we are creative, and suddenly we press the button and we are not. Creativity comes whenever it wants. And in my case, when I create, it's like a flash. And very often it's a visual flash. It's not something, I'm a chef, so it's about cooking, about flavors, about ingredients, about techniques, craftsmanship and so on. But when it happens, it's like I could be talking to you or eating with you or in a plane or at work or in a market or anywhere, and suddenly I have a vision and it comes to me like that, and then it disappears. And in that case, what I do I take a pen and a piece of paper and I write the idea. And then I try to, from that flash, from that image, I try to break it down into techniques and into flavors, and I try to make sense out of it. And then I collect those pieces of paper and I bring back that to work, and then with my team, we work in collaboration to basically create from the idea something that is tangible. And very often it's completely wacky, the idea. And the result is very different than what I thought. So out of 100 ideas, 3 make it. Thank God I have a lot of ideas.
But now you're using the word idea, but at first you have used the visual You've used the word vision, so you've used the word, basically you've been saying you have an image of what you're going to do.
Yeah, it's something that hits me like that.
I find very interesting what you're describing is exactly the way one of my paintings get made. Exactly the same way.
Huh.
The first thing is really an image that is, which will come unexpectedly, any time or any place, and then I scribble down a very primitive sign almost that is just a reminder for me to know what I saw, and then I have to set up a framework to work, of technique, medium, ground, situation, format, emotional register, the whole nines. It's exactly the parallel process, exactly to the one you just described. Well,
is it you think like universal with all artists? They have this kind of like a...
I wonder. Philip Glass has said something wonderful. He said, I don't write music, I hear it. So, again, it would be, we have really to talk about the senses with you. The 5 senses.
Yes.
In your case, what do you see? Do you taste it? Do you smell it? Do you... it would be interesting to know which senses make it to the mind before, you do it.
So the flash is an integration of the visual, which is not so important actually, because presentation to me comes after. I'm all about flavors and textures and so on, because eating is about, it's not something necessarily that the visual is so important. The flavor is more important. The visual I'm never too worried about. We're going to find the right presentation. But when the flash arrives, right away it triggers some memories in my mind. And it's very interesting because let's suppose I have a flash now with artichokes and spices. And immediately, it's almost like a reflex. I can smell the spice that I'm seeing in my flash, and I can taste the artichoke. Now, I grew up in the south of France, and the artichokes taste a certain way. So I memorized all those flavors at a young age because I was a very good eater, kind of a glutton. I think it's why I went into cooking actually to eat. But I kind of like almost like you will have in your mind, I will assume a palette of colors that you don't need to see. You have them in the mind, right? For me, I have a palette of flavors, and that sometimes is tricky to me in America because the artichoke that I believe is going to go well with the pink peppercorn, suddenly the American artichokes taste different. And when I do the recipe, I'm like, no. The artichoke doesn't taste like that. But actually it does. It's just a different product. So then I have to, with the team, either way to compensate the lack of similarity in flavors with what I have been trained with, or just nix the idea because it's too far from my reference. I don't know if that makes sense, but...
Totally, yeah. I'm happy you used you brought up the word memory, because as I was walking here and I was thinking of what you make and what you do, I thought for someone like that, the Refuge is really the grandmother kitchen. I don't think you can be a chef if you don't have some kind of really original memory of great food. Is that correct?
Yes. Both of my grandmothers were amazing in terms of cooking soul food. One was Italian from Genoa, and living next to Nice. And she was cooking all that delicious food inspired by Italy, and I was always in the kitchen. She would never let me touch anything, but I could look and eat as much as I want. So that was good. Then I had my other grandmother in Provence, who was from Carpentras, next to Nîmes, who would cook slightly different, more Provençal style. It's subtle nuances in between Italian, North Italian and Provence. And again, was soul food, a food that doesn't really look necessarily, in terms of aesthetic, good. Food that is family style, and food that when you eat, not only nourish your body, but nourish your soul. For some reason, you can feel the love and you can feel the passion. Everything is behind that. So my grandmothers were key in my training as what I became later, right? And my mother was very inspired by nouvelle cuisine and liked refined cuisine, and was cooking every day for me, lunch and dinner, appetizer, main course, and dessert. Presented on beautiful china, and I was not drinking the Bordeaux, but it was a different bottle of Bordeaux every night on the table, beautiful tablecloths, silverwares, and so on. So I was exposed to those two very different cuisines, but very, very beautiful cuisines, delicious, and at the same time, I could really, really feel the love of mom and the love of my grandmothers.
That's wonderful. I have to take a little diversion here because the word love has reminded me. One of my daughters is a chef, and she was an intern in Alba with a very innovative and very brilliant chef. And after 2 months after the internship ended, she said, "Oh, you know, he's too ambitious. To me, cooking is an act of love." So the question would be here, is that an issue? Do you have to balance ambition and the desire to comfort and to nourish and so on? Because there is an element of ambition when you make something new. That alone is ambitious, no? With all the
so everybody knows that chefs have big egos. As a young kid, I wanted to be a chef. All my life, I wanted to be a chef. So I never struggled with what am I going to become. I knew I would become a chef. And I was ambitious in a sense that I wanted to work for the best chefs, be in the best kitchens, and then ambitious in a sense that I wanted to be the chef that I am today, with that beautiful kitchen and all the cooks that work with me and so on. But it was not about looking at myself in magazines or being on television or talking to you on stage and so on. It was not an egoistic approach. It was ambitious about being able to cook good food and to be able to live my passion as an artisan, a craftsman, and a chef, obviously, that feed people. So that was really my ambition. And I guess I had a very strong mind power because it happened.
If we continue on our journey through the 7 limbs practice, the second step is offering. And here we could talk about it in personal terms, just continuing what you're saying about, having the possibility and to give like that. Or we could also really turn it into a parallel game and imagine if you had to cook visualize a great offering of food for whatever day it is, which direction would you go? So,
if I did actually this exercise, and I almost brought you the book here, and I will give you this book actually. Cathy would make sure we'll the book to Mr. Clemente. But I imagine myself with Green Tara, goddess of compassion in Vajranaya. And in that book, the artist wanted absolutely to portrait Green Tara, and then she wanted to take a portrait of me after the encounter with Green Tara. So I end up with my hand kind of like greenish, a little bit like that. Mm-hmm. And she was kind enough to make me enlightened for a quarter of a second. So I have a bit of gold and silver and so on. And I cooked for Green Tara. So what I cooked for Green Tara was vegan. Because I didn't want to, although Le Bernardin is a seafood restaurant and we have a karmic relationship with fish, I probably will end up as a sardine or something like that in my next life. But for Green Tara, I was like, it was very important for me to find food that was not linked to a sentient being soul, right? So I believe that carrots or truffles or mushroom are lives, but they don't feel the pain the way a rabbit is going to feel the pain, or chicken or something like that. So I find the most esoterical ingredient, in my opinion, that I could cook with a truffle. And truffles are very mystical. They are, you cannot cultivate truffles. And they are, as we know, underground and difficult to find. They have a temper, kind of, like, you know, like they grow up, they don't grow up, you never know. It's not something that you can predict. And every truffle has a different flavor, subtle different flavor. But none of them exactly taste the same. And you can go through thousands of them. You will never find exactly the same. Mm-hmm. So I did, in that fantasy menu for Tara, a toasted baguette, because I'm French. And also I find bread, the process of making bread, pretty amazing. So I did a toasted baguette, shaved the truffles, a bit of olive oil, rock salt, a bit of pepper, and gave it to her like that. I made a rice, basmati rice, a beautiful basmati rice that comes from India, with gold leaves and some berries and so on. And obviously, it was for Tara again. And we did a dessert with plums because they were in season. And same thing. It was about, first of all, creating something that was delicious, although in Buddhism, you're not supposed to create something that is potentially attaching the senses of someone to that. But Green Tara, she's a goddess, so she doesn't get attached. And I put all my love, compassion in the process. And that's what I did.
She must have been so happy after centuries of momos.
I like momos.
But when Patti Smith was here, the only question I wanted to ask her, and I did ask, was like, do you talk to the dead? So with you, I would like to ask, do you talk to vegetables?
Yes.
I knew it.
You know, I hug trees too. I talk to vegetables. Last week I was in Korea, and I was studying is a big word, but I was learning about temple food, and I went with a nun into the garden, and we went to harvest what the garden had to give us. And I couldn't help than to talk to the vegetables. And I was actually asking them permission if I could take a leaf and because she was like, test this, test that. And I was like, can I test your leaf of cabbage? And then I was like, I'm nuts. But I believe strongly that vegetable, I mean, it's not like strongly, I purely believe that vegetables are alive, and we know that they are alive. And I believe they have, I don't want to call it a soul because I'm a Buddhist, so they have a level of consciousness, and you can tap into it, and you can connect with it. So, yes, I talk to vegetables, not all the time, but when they are especially alive, I talk to them, and when they are dead, which means when you find them at the supermarket a week later or 2 weeks later and so on, sometimes I don't talk to them, and sometimes I talk to them. But also I talk to them not only with the brain, but with my entire body, with my hands, and they talk to me back. And I explain, if I take a tomato in my hand will have this kind of communication with the tomato, and the tomato will say to my hand, I am not ripe. Or I'm very watery because it was very raining and so on. Or the tomato will give me some information. Or if it's a potato or something like that, I will right away know if it's a happy young potato or old beat up potato. So I'm talking with my body, I'm talking with my consciousness, and with my heart as well.
But I mean, this was really the beginning of things. I mean, there must have been a time when someone tasted a fruit or a vegetable for the first time, and before he did that, he must have had some kind of interaction to make him go there. It's in very remote past. I mean, this is in our memory.
And in that case, it's too bad that we have lost a lot of that.
Of that communication.
Because of that communication. And because if we have, I mean, when I see what's happening in supermarkets and what's happening today with technology where we can keep vegetables kind of looking fresh for a year and so on, they do look fresh, they taste like nothing. But we have lost a sense of respect for the planet and for the life of the vegetable, and in that case, we're living in a degenerated time, and I think at one point we will go back into the past, which will be our future.
And also, in relation to all of this, another question I had for you was how important, I mean, do you give, I think from all that you have said you do, but I'm going to ask it anyway, how important for you is the symbolic value of food, where this means, do you think food has some kind of symbolic effect on us?
Yes, of course. I mean, I run a restaurant in New York, so it's a business. However, it's not about the money. And I mentioned before, it's not about the owners and so on. It's about the pleasure of cooking with my team and about making people happy. That's at the restaurant. And then when you offer food like you did today, and you painted it, you touch my heart. When you go to the house of someone and you are welcome and someone has cooked for you, and I think we are approaching Thanksgiving soon, right? And if you go to Thanksgiving and you're a guest and someone cooked for you the turkey or the vegetables or anything like that, and you are sitting down at the table, that food will touch you. we touch your soul, will also open your mind to communication with the person. Food has the power to bring people closer, to bring people together like that. And I worked actually when I was very young in Paris in 1982 in a very old restaurant called La Tour d'Argent, which was at the time in 1982 400 years old. So today, I don't know, I'm bad in math, but in that restaurant, they kept the table where Germany and France signed the Treaty of Peace for the. It was a war before. It was the end of the 19th century. So I don't know what the date exactly, but basically the food sealed the peace pact in between the two countries, and the wine as well. I mean, I don't think I don't think they got wasted that day, but I think that the food and the wine and
they did
had this effect. So yes, food has the power to bring us together.
Yes, I haven't thought about all of that area, but definitely that's a communal experience. This is why I call myself a polite vegetarian, because I would be a vegetarian, but if someone cooks a great meal that is not vegetarian, I'll eat it.
Please come visit.
Continuing on our schedule of the 7 limbs practice, the next, as you may know already, is regret. And I would reduce this one really to a game and ask you, what's the flavor of regret? Which flavor would you associate with regret?
Animal suffering. Because I have, for a long time, cooked animals and not being mindful about the fact that forget the idea of do they have a consciousness or not, or soul or not, depending on your religion. But animals, as we know, suffer. If you beat a dog, he's going to cry. If you castrate a veal, he's going to cry. If you put chickens in cages and they are 6 by 6 in those tiny cages, they suffer. And sometimes in cooking, we have some rituals that are totally cruel toward the animals, but we have been trained not to think about it. And therefore, sometimes we even take like alive animals and just like take their life away without even thinking about the suffering. So the test of regret for me is the test of the suffering of the animal. And I have a lot of regrets.
Rejoice. That's the next one.
Rejoice. What is rejoice?
You regret for what you should have avoided or you could have avoided that gets on your path, and you rejoice into the whatever correct action you can perform. So
I rejoice in mentoring. I rejoice in sharing the wisdom that I have accumulated, cooking wisdom and in life, of course. But it's very close together because I cook all day. So it's basically the lifestyle.
right.
But this gives me a lot of joy. And at the same time, I feel that I'm basically changing the course of my karma by doing that, by creating positive actions for others. Not like I'm doing that, yes. So if I have been cruel in naively or by being not mindful in the past, I have those regrets, and then I think I can counteract that karma. The antidote is basically to make sure that my cooks, or the cooks that I am talking to, or the people that I'm reaching out to, will not make the same mistake.
This is good that you're mentioning this, because the next step in the seven limbs practice is asking for guidance. And so the fact that you're mentoring and guiding the next generation also brings in the question, who are your saints, who are your guiding forces? And the answer can be even more technical, people who have really inspired you, or what is your lineage? How do you trace your lineage? Who came before you that you really think?
It's a lot of people who came before me, and I probably...
Who are your gurus, basically, in Buddhist terms? What's the lineage?
I have to say, well, obviously Buddha has definitely had a huge impact in my life, a positive impact in my life. And then without His Holiness the Dalai Lama and his teaching, I don't think I would have evolved the way I have evolved in my life. So therefore, it's 14 Dalai Lamas. I mean, he's the 14th, so it's 13 previously to himself, and probably other souls before him. But the ultimate guru for me is Buddha, because my understanding, maybe naively, is that he was the first one to basically find a way to free us from the samsara being the circle of being born and dying and being born and dying in this kind of world. So Siddhartha Shakyamuni Buddha is the one of our times who shows us the way, and is my guru.
And from the other lineage of the chefs and cooking.
Oh, you talk about the chefs?
No, both are important.
No, of course. I have been very lucky to find three very important mentors. And sometimes when you have one, you're like, wow, this is my luck. But I was lucky because I find one, Joël Robuchon, who was in the 80s in Paris, the god of the chefs. And he taught me discipline, technique, rigor, respect for the product, and probably many other things. Then I came to the US in 1989. I found Jean-Louis Paladin, who was in Washington, D.C. at the Watergate Hotel, also famous for the scandal. And he was a great, charismatic, compassionate person, but yelling a lot. However, he opened my mind. He said, well, look, you're a technician, but basically what you are doing, it's like you duplicate what you have learned. You have to be creative. You can't, just be a robot. So I don't want a robot in my kitchen. I want you to, you have mastered many of the techniques and so on. So now it's time for you to open your mind and to be creative. And Jean-Louis Paladin helped me tremendously in becoming creative. And then the third mentor was Gilbert Lecause at Le Bernardin, where I am today, who passed away in 94. But I had the luck to work with him for 3-4 years, and he taught me how to manage a team. Because it's, for chefs, you have to be a good artisan. You have to be creative, and then you have to be able to manage a team. of people to basically share your vision with them, teach them, and so on. And also you have to be financially responsible because it's not the Red Cross or it's not a charity. You have to generate profits at the end of the year to be able to pay your employees, to be able to invest and blah, 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 right? So I had those 3 mentors.
And how old were you when you thought you had found your voice?
So today I'm 49, and I really find my voice, I think late, it was in 2001. Until 2001, for some reason, first of all, I was trying to be humble, and I was kind of insulting my luck by refusing to accept that I have a certain talent. I was like, nah, I don't have talent. And then...
but that's supposed to be correct, to fight the angel, not to go with the angel.
I didn't know that at the time. But then in 2001, I did a book called A Return to Cooking, where I was already a recognized chef in New York, an accomplished chef in New York, the chef of Le Bernardin since 91, so it was 10 years later. And I decided to do this book with artists. So a painter came with me, 2 photographers, and a writer, and we studied the 4 seasons and connect with nature. And we rented 4 different houses in 4 different regions. And the exercise was for the artist to start with a white canvas every morning, and for myself to go to the market and find the products and improvise and cook, for the photographers to document, and for the writer to do whatever he wanted, but document a little bit. And I had a lot of rules, bless you. I had a lot of rules. We were supposed to shoot the pictures with daylight, not artificial lights. And the food I was preparing was supposed to be shot like a reporter, not like embellished and with a brush, you put a little bit of oil to make it shiny.
Yeah.
And it was, this is the food we're eating. The first plate, you take a picture, we are 6, because it was someone helping us to clean and so on. So when I'm done with the 6th plate, you have to be done and sit down, and we're eating the food that I cooked. And we're not letting any of the food going to be spoiled or to the garbage, except if I burn it or something like that. And everything I was cooking, I was eating it, and I was like, oh, this is really good. And I was like, wow, how did I come up with that? And obviously, I had a couple of incidents, thank God, to bring me down with my ego during the experience, but I needed that boost, right? And in my life to believe in the gift. And that book for me was a revelation. I realized that I was a good cook.
Wonderful. The next step is, in the practice, you ask for guidance until final enlightenment. Usually this is always a tricky point, because some people can believe in enlightenment and others cannot believe in enlightenment. In your case, you do believe in enlightenment. But in your case, I think it would be interesting to hear something about the relation between the senses and enlightenment. I made a group of paintings that were called Tandoori Satori, where the 2 words brought into my mind a slow process, the tandoori oven, the slow process of accumulating heat and the clay, and to be grounded into the ground, and etc., etc., etc. And Satori brought in the flash of the mind that just unexpectedly opens up. So, I don't know, do you go there even when you're cooking? There are moments of harmony where you really completely get into a transformative state of mind?
Well, yes. To begin, cooking can be a meditation. And for me, very often, it becomes a meditation of being mindful in the present. And I am so much into my craft that I don't even know what's going on around me. And actually, when I was talking about the book I did in 2001, I was in a cooking, and someone came to see the house because we were renting the house. And supposedly they visit all the rooms and they look at the kitchen and they look. I never saw those people. And then I heard a car and I said, I think someone is coming. And they laugh and they say, no, those people were with us for half hour. and they just left. So it's a meditation to begin with. And then you really, when you cook, create a relationship with the ingredients. And it's how you can create harmony. And when you create harmony, it's when you attain the most important thing in cooking. It's going to be delicious, and you have been able to put your feelings in, potentially, your feelings into it. So cooking is definitely a transcendent experience. Now, if the line cooks of Le Bernardin tonight, right now it's rush hour, we are listening to me, they will be laughing at me because they're like, hey, we have to feed 100 people, what is he talking about? But the essence of cooking, it's not in restaurants feeding 100 people at 8 o'clock. The essence of cooking, it's about cooking in a more relaxed atmosphere, and for people you love or people that you don't know, but it's about the process. Now, despite the fact that we have the challenge of cooking for 100 people every night, and we have time restrictions and so on, I try to teach to our cooks the beauty of connecting with the ingredients and the beauty of being able to put your soul into the food and creating harmony. And this is new for us, because I used to be a very abusive chef a long time ago.
What's an abusing chef?
Abusing chef is a chef who yells at his cooks all day long, throw tantrums, break plates on the floor, things like that. That's an abusive chef. But then I realized one day, I had this kind of like moment where I was very unhappy in my life. I was young. I was already in New York, but I was young and I was very unhappy in my life. And I was trying to, and you know how I find out I was unhappy in my life? When I was closing my eyes, I would try to see beautiful things, like a field of flowers. And I could see only ugly things. And I was like, wow, this is weird. I must be very unhappy. And I was very unhappy. And then I realized I was unhappy because I was making people unhappy. The team around me. And almost overnight, I mean, it took me quite some time to, first of all, transform myself and then convince the people that I had trained the wrong way to believe that treating people with respect is the right way to do. So, yeah, I mean,
We're now going to talk about drugs and chefs.
Drugs and chefs? Well,
no, because it's such a fantastically demanding thing. It's really.
Yeah. But you have some young chefs. Young chefs who use drugs, and I'm thinking about cocaine and alcohol and so on. But those young chefs cannot become. At one point they just give up. They have to give up, and they never make it to the top. Not necessarily in terms of being regarded by the media, but to the top in terms of being a great artist.
Yeah.
Because
they lose the emotional touch.
they lose a lot
knowledge,
of a lot of things. And in the kitchen, I mean, you can't be an old drug addict chef. It's too physical. So they're young, they do it for a while, and it's not for them, and they do something else.
And the last step in the 7 Leaves practice is offering. So offering brings the question, which even if we have all our lovely narratives, for what? You know, all this work for what? Is the work itself the reward, or
it's a holistic approach about it. I mean, the process is the reward. The satisfaction that you get from the process is obviously something that brings a lot of happiness to you. And if you are going to offer it, and offering can be, obviously, like I'm offering you, like you did with the painting that is
I was trying to make painting obviously impermanent, because in a way I'm a little jealous of dancers or someone like you who's make beautiful things that then disappear, you know.
It disappears, but even your paintings are exposed to impermanence.
Yes, yes.
Because obviously
absolutely.
time has an impact on it.
I just wanted to speed the process up a moment.
Well, and then you see, I was not really Buddhist. I didn't want to really.
I love the manifestation of attachment. Excellent. That's very.
See, I still have to work on it.
We have some entertainment.
Also, let me. I'm
yes,
sorry.
Yes,
I just want to finish. So, offering. Obviously, when you're going to offer, like you just did, I was in the middle of the sentence. That gives tremendous satisfaction to anyone. I think when you're going to give something to someone, it makes you happy. I don't know why, but I think it's universal. And even in a commercial way, like restaurants, people pay for their food, right? I mean, but as cooks, we don't think about the bill that the client is going to pay. We're thinking about what we are giving to the client. And that's what makes us so passionate about our craft and about what we do. It's because it's this kind of like generous act of putting something from yourself into the food and giving it. Mm-hmm. So it's in every aspect is rewarding.
I have to quote another family member, my wife. She's a very good cook, but she always said, when I asked her, tell her I'm going to invite somebody, she said, well, I can't just cook for anyone.
Well, I can understand that. I can understand that.
So,
are
you like that of course, with the restaurant?
I mean, I'm not gonna talk about cooking this time. I'm gonna talk about wines, right? Mm-hmm. Sometimes I have very good bottles of wine, and I'm like, I'm not gonna open this bottle for anyone. They're not gonna appreciate, although probably they would, but. So there's still a little bit of attachment here too.
And there too.